April 18th, 1942. About 1,000 kilometers off the Japanese coast, the Pacific Ocean, 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers are lined up on the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Hornet. The sea is stormy. The ship is rocking amid the waves. And these are planes that, under normal circumstances, should never take off from an aircraft carrier. Because the B-25 is not an aircraft carrier plane, the runway is too short. Takeoff is theoretically impossible. But here, on this ship's deck, theory means nothing. Exactly 4 months and 17 days have passed since Pearl Harbor. America is still in shock. They are retreating on every front in the Pacific. Japan's mainland seems untouchable. The Japanese people, meanwhile, believe their emperor will never be threatened, that no enemy aircraft can approach Tokyo. Today, that belief will come to an end. 80 volunteer pilots, a one-way ticket. Because the planes don't have enough fuel to return. The plan: bomb Tokyo, then land in China, if they can make it. Commander: Colonel Fritzy H. Doolittle, a famous race car driver in peacetime, now the leader of history's craziest operation. And on that deck, as they waited for the takeoff order, every pilot was thinking the same thing. Can we even get out of this plane? This operation took place between two forces. On one side, the United States Army Air Forces, 80 volunteer pilots and crew members, 16 B-25 Mitchell aircraft. On the other side, Imperial Japan and its mainland, believed to be impregnable. Date: April 18th, 1942. Duration: approximately 30 seconds. That's how long each plane spent over Tokyo. But the reverberations of those 30 seconds lasted for years. Locations: Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. Japan's largest industrial and port cities. The operation was completed in a single day, but its effects altered the entire course of the war. A small but critical note: this operation caused limited military damage. The 16 planes were not carrying bombs that would win the war. But its psychological impact far exceeded the physical damage it inflicted. And this psychological impact drove Japan to commit one of history's greatest mistakes: Midway. But we'll get to that. Field analysis. In this operation, geography is everything, and everything works against it. The B-25 Mitchell is a medium-range bomber designed to operate from land-based airfields. It was not designed for takeoff from an aircraft carrier. The deck is too short, and takeoff in rough seas is extremely risky. Nevertheless, it was attempted, and succeeded. Even the position of the American aircraft carrier closest to Japan's coastline is a problem in itself. Japan's maritime patrol aircraft and surveillance ships form a wide perimeter. Approaching undetected requires night operations, and an early morning takeoff is essential. But the real problem was the return. The planes had to reach the area near Chongqing in China after Tokyo. This distance was at the limit of the B-25's fuel capacity. Any delay, any route change, any storm could deplete the fuel. Indeed, that's exactly what happened. Most of the planes that reached the Chinese coast ran out of fuel. The pilots either parachuted out or made emergency landings. One plane landed in the Soviet Union, and the crew was placed under international protection. 2 crews were captured by the Japanese. Geography was definitely against the Americans in this operation. But the Americans didn't factor in geography. They factored in courage, force comparison. In terms of the balance of power, this operation was one of the most lopsided in history. On the American side, 16 planes, 80 men, one-way fuel. No air support, no naval support, no guarantee of return. On the Japanese side, one of the world's most powerful naval forces at the time, hundreds of anti-aircraft guns around Tokyo, air defense systems, patrol aircraft, and a deep conviction that no enemy could ever get this close. Mathematically, the success of this operation seemed impossible. In fact, even Admiral Ernest King, who planned the operation, was initially skeptical of the idea. "What can 16 planes possibly do?" he asked. And that is precisely the mystery. The Doolittle Raid inflicted minimal physical damage on Japan. But following the raid, the Japanese General Staff, in a state of panic, accelerated their offensive targeting midway. Because the decision was made, if our homeland has been struck, we must expand our naval defense line. And at midway, Japan suffered a defeat from which there was no return. So 16 planes indirectly changed the course of the war. Was there someone who planned this? Or did history simply demand it? The answer to this question remains a matter of debate. Preparation phase and command structure. The architect of this operation was Colonel James Harold Doolittle. In peacetime, he was a legend in air racing, a pilot with a doctorate in engineering, and an MIT graduate. In wartime, he was a commander who volunteered for the most dangerous mission. When Doolittle was assigned to the mission, the first thing he did was issue a call for volunteers. He didn't reveal the full details of the mission to anyone. He only noted that it might be dangerous and one way. 80 people volunteered. No one backed down. The training process was conducted in secrecy at Eglin Air Force Base. The pilots spent weeks practicing short runway takeoffs. Each flight was tested from shorter runways with heavier loads. The takeoff distance was gradually reduced. Eventually, takeoff from a distance equivalent to the deck's length became possible. On the naval side, Admiral William Halsey commanded Task Force 16. The USS Hornet and USS Enterprise were to break through Japan's patrol lines and approach the target area. On the Japanese side, however, Defense Command was fragmented and under the responsibility of multiple agencies. The lack of coordination between naval and ground forces played a decisive role both before and after the raid. And a critical detail: the operation was launched approximately 10 hours earlier than planned. This was because they had been spotted by the Japanese patrol ship fleet. Doolittle made an immediate decision: take off now or not at all. They took off. Chronology of the war: January to March 1942, the birth of the idea. Weeks after Pearl Harbor, U.S. Navy officer Francis Lowe proposes a radical idea. Could land-based bombers be launched from an aircraft carrier? The idea reaches higher command. Doolittle is assigned to the mission. Secret preparations begin. No one knows about the operation, not even President Roosevelt. Only a few people are in the know. April 2nd, 1942. Setting sail. The USS Hornet departs San Francisco with 16 B-25s on its deck. Most of the ship's crew does not know why the planes are there. Out at sea, Doolittle explains the mission to the crew. He asks if anyone wants to turn back. No one does. April 18th, 1942. Morning. Early takeoff. 7:38 a.m. A Japanese patrol ship is spotted. They are still approximately 250 kilometers too far from the target. Doolittle orders the takeoff much earlier and from a much more distant point than planned. This reduces the already tight fuel margin to nearly zero. In stormy seas from the rocking deck, a B-25 takes off. Then another. All 16 planes are airborne. None crash into the sea. April 18th, 1942. Afternoon, 30 seconds over Tokyo. The planes approach Tokyo one by one at low altitude. Japanese air defenses are completely unprepared, since an air drill had been conducted in Tokyo that morning and had just concluded. Anti-aircraft guns are idle. Fighter planes are on the ground. Bombs are dropped. Each plane spends 30 seconds over the target, and they continue toward China. April 18th, 1942. Night. The end in China. Most of the planes reach the Chinese coast but run out of fuel. Pilots either throw parachute out or make emergency landings. Chinese villagers and resistance forces rescue many pilots. 73 out of 80 eventually return to America. 3 lose their lives. 8 are captured by the Japanese. 2 are executed. April to May 1942. Japan's response. Panic in Tokyo. The emperor's safety is at risk. This is unacceptable. The Japanese General Staff convenes urgently and decides to expand the defense line. The Midway operation is accelerated, and this hasty decision paves the way for Japan's irreversible defeat at Midway in June 1942. Strategic and psychological impacts. The military damage from the Doolittle Raid was minimal. A few factories, some ports, limited infrastructure. There was no impact that would directly alter the balance of the war. But the psychological impact was a rare example in military history. On the American front, the first good news since Pearl Harbor. Newspapers ran front-page headlines. Radio stations broadcast for hours. People poured into the streets. At a press conference, Roosevelt said the planes had taken off from Shangri-La to maintain secrecy. Morale in the country soared. On the Japanese front, however, the effect was the exact opposite. The bombing of Tokyo meant that the emperor's capital was not inviolable. This created a deep fissure in the psychology of the Japanese people and military. And the strategic result, Japan decided that capturing Midway was imperative. It committed its entire fleet to this operation. But the Americans had cracked the Japanese codes. They lay in ambush at Midway. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were sunk. Japan's air superiority in the Pacific ended in a single day. So the Doolittle Raid lit the fuse for Midway. And Midway was the turning point of the Pacific War. 16 planes indirectly shaped the course of the war. If this raid hadn't taken place, would Japan have rushed to Midway so hastily? Most likely not. And without Midway, the Pacific War would have lasted much longer. How many millions of lives are at stake in this calculation? No one can know for sure. The Doolittle Raid was the smallest operation in the military history that sighed the most. 16 planes, 80 men, 30 seconds. And the course of history changed. What made this operation extraordinary wasn't the targets it struck. It was a message written in courage. To Japan, your mainland is not untouchable. To America, we're still standing and we can strike back. After the operation, Doolittle thought he had failed. Because he lost all his planes, inflicted limited damage on the target, and lost many of his pilots. He was expecting a court-martial instead of a medal, in his own words. Instead, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor because Washington had understood its true value. In 2013, the 4 surviving Doolittle Raiders gathered one last time. They raised their glasses. They upheld a tradition among them, a toast for every friend they had lost. Then they fell silent. Only 4 remained out of 80, and they all knew the planes that took off from that deck wrote the most important 30 seconds in history. In our next video, we stay in the Pacific. 1944. America has now gone on the offensive, and there is only one target to break through Japan's final major naval defense line, the waters off the Philippines. Aircraft carriers, battleships, and hundreds of planes from both sides face off in the same stretch of ocean. A naval air battle unlike any other in history. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. See you in the next video.